and members of the public to the June 17, 2025 Administrative and Regulatory Committee meeting. My name is Linda Kroon. I am the chair of Administrative and Regulatory Committee. Joining me are my two colleagues and committee members, Paul Weech and Azola Shaw. The first item on today's agenda is approval of the minutes for April 29th, 2025. Can I get a motion, please?
I move to approve the minutes.
Second? I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Thank you, guys. This this member was approved. We will now move to the next item on the agenda, and that is discussion. It's a discussion action and have housing choice voucher administrative plan. Its proposed provisions are chapters 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 10, 12, and 15. I would like to introduce President Andrews to provide an overview of this item.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the committee, and the HOC team. Want to just at the offset say that we have a lot of material to go through here with you today, and we are going to try our best to do it in a manner that allows for us to share the recommendations, get your feedback, and move on to the next chapter. You will hear from our compliance team led by Darcel Cox that some of these modifications and changes are minor in the sense that they're housekeeping cleanups, and others are require a slight shift in our protocols or provide further explanation of how we administer our plan. As you all know, the Housing Choice Voucher Administrative Plan is set to be a resource for the public as well as a guidebook for us all in terms of how we administer the voucher program. We have been coming before this committee and the board related to changes that were required with the latest round of HOCMA policy changes. As we looked at all of the overall plan recommendations, we separated out those that weren't necessarily HOCMA required, but would still be a benefit in terms of cleaning up the overall admin plan as we move forward. And so with that, I would like to turn it over to our Vice President of Compliance, Ms. Darcel Cox.
Good afternoon. For the record, I am Darcel Cox, Vice President of Compliance. In January of 2024, HOC engaged a vendor, Dew & Associates, to collaborate on several tasks, but one objective was to review the entire admin plan and make updates not only on HOCMA and Inspire, but any required HUD regulatory updates. Today, I will present updates outlined within several chapters of the admin plan, which should address required regulatory updates, clarity, and overall efficiency. I'm going to move to slide 4, but also page 14 of the admin plan book, page 14. All right. So in Chapter 2, Eligibility for Admissions, HOC added the near elderly definition, which is persons between 50 and 61. This is a HUD regulatory update. Scroll down. Sorry. You can scroll down. Scroll down. Well, I'm sorry. This is going to take a little getting used to. Page 16. All right. So we also updated wording that existing household members cannot change the relationship status to a live-in aid unless it has an approved reasonable accommodation and assigned addendum. Page 21. Scroll down. Within this same chapter, HOC expanded its language on debts owed to HOC or another PHA as a result of prior participation in any federal housing program. Page 24. And lastly, we relocated wording from chapter 7 to chapter 2 as it relates to tenant and screening information. If you could go back to page 4. So that is a summary of the changes that we made to chapter 2. I'll pause here and see if you have any questions.
Does any of the fellow commissioners have any questions?
Yeah,
chapter 2?
This is Paul. Just Darcel, just 2 quick questions. When is the near elderly definition used?
Lynn, are you able to support that question? Lynn Hayes, Vice President of Housing Resources Division.
We don't typically use that definition. We use elderly or not non-elderly.
Yeah, so HUD just added it for some other PHA.
Yes, right, correct.
And then how about what's the problem we're solving for, or is HUD solving for, by requiring us to approve a family member changing their designation to live-in aid?
And so we have Asha Memon should be on here to address any reasonable accommodation question.
Hey, Commissioner, can you repeat that question?
Oh, just I don't need to go too deeply into this, Asha. The language is changed. It says we now have to approve the change of somebody who's living in the home who wants to be designated as a live-in aid. And I took that to be a family member now wants to be designated as live-in aid. And I'm not opposed to it at all. I just didn't understand why.
Well, to be fair, that is our standard practice. So I think the language might just be catching up to what we've always done.
And we just want to know if one of the residents qualifies as live-in aid.
Yeah, they would have to submit the paperwork. There's medical verification forms that go along with it. There's a process.
That's correct. That is our current practice. And I think we definitely want to go this route to get it approved, because if someone is designated as a live-in aid, their income is not counted.
Thank you. There you go, Lynn. That's what I was missing. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. If there are no other questions, we can move to chapter 3, but slide 5.
And as we do that, before we move forward, we sent the materials along with the red line. We were trying to think through the best way to present this material here, and just want to post-check with you, commissioners, if this process of showing the red line and then going back to the slide is helpful, or if we should just go over the high level on the slide and only pull up the red line if there are questions. So I'd love to, because this might be a lengthy process, just wanted to pulse and find out what, if any, preference you all may have in how we're going through these recommendations.
Well, I think we should just go through it, and whatever you added in, just show us whatever you took out and you're getting ready to add in. What do you think, fellow commissioners?
Do you all like the toggle, or have you had a chance to read the red line, or is it helpful for us to pull the red line up?
Just speaking for myself, I had the opportunity to go through the red line.
Right.
And so I'm happy to just do the overview and then have specific things that I was going to call out as we went through the deck.
That sounds good. Azola?
Yes, I'm also happy to go through the overview. I think that may be more efficient as well.
Okay,
Sounds
great.
good to me.
Thank you. We wanted to figure out what might be best, so we'll do it this way. And if you have questions, then we'll have the opportunity to toggle. Thank you, Darcel.
Thank you. So chapter 3, applying for admissions, and we'll stay here. So HOC has revised its language so that we are not denying applications based on ineligibility status at the time of the pre-application. Eligibility verification will be determined at the time of call up for the voucher program. In addition, HOC expanded the language on project-based voucher selections to include that it is based on availability and preferences. And I will pause here. The remaining updates were minor. Those were the major changes. I'll pause here and ask if there are any questions.
Darcel, this is Paul Weech. It looks in the document in chapter 3 where we marked it up, page 3.1 of the document, it still says that you need to sign up on Housing Path to get on the wait list. And,
right.
And then on page 3, it says we're deleting that requirement and changing it to the HOC website.
And so I do apologize for that oversight. We are making that. And before we publish the final chapters, we will do another run through and make sure that we've captured that.
Perfect.
Thank you.
No worries.
Any other questions as it relates to chapter 3 or comments? All right. Next slide. Chapter 5, subsidy standards. So HOC, we updated language. We changed our wording from HQS to Inspire. We corrected some grammatical errors throughout, and we updated language as it relates to Violence Against Women's Act. HOC victims of violence who could receive a preference of receiving the assistance if a family splits. So within that chapter, it outlines that if a family splits, there are certain preferences to speak to if the assistance can move with the child, or it could move with the victim of VAWA. So we updated that language there. One of the policy changes is that to the reasonable accommodation process, that if a family has a voucher size increase and no longer qualifies for the reasonable accommodation, that we will decrease the voucher within 120 days or the next annual recertification. And those are the major changes for chapter 5. I'll pause here and see if you have any questions or comments or concerns.
Darcel, can you explain again what you just said about they will get a smaller place if with the voucher?
So in some
does it wait, I'm trying to understand it because I see right there where you have the violence against women, but I was trying to understand the unit size. Now, are you saying they will decrease? They would decrease their place? Why?
So
I don't
no,
understand
this chapter is this update outlines that if a household family splits due to whatever reason, and one reason being VAWA, that the assistance could actually move with the family based on preferences. And one of those preferences could be if it is due to VAWA, or the assistance could actually move with the person who's caring for the dependent.
Okay, I got it now. Okay, I understand now. I was getting a little mixed up, but I understand what you're saying now. Go. Any more questions? Azola, no questions? Okay, Darcel.
All right, next slide. So chapter 6, factors related to TTP or family shared determination. There were minor updates throughout this chapter, grammatical errors, added written words to stated numbers throughout the chapter. We clarified language within the chapter as well. There are no other updates, but I will pause here for questions or concerns.
None here.
All right, next slide. Chapter 7, verification procedures. So HOC updated wording related to the verification hierarchy and the introduction of the paragraph. That was the major update here. And as we mentioned when I first started, we removed the language from chapter 7 to chapter 2. Are there any other? I'll pause here for questions or concerns.
No.
None here.
All right, next slide. So chapter 10, this chapter describes HOC's procedures for performing inspections. Lynn Hayes, Vice President of the Housing Resources Division, will present the Inspire updates in detail. Outside of the Inspire updates, HOC has added an update related to the lead safe housing rule. When a child under 6 is identified with elevated blood levels, HOC is required to take certain actions, which we have outlined within this chapter. This includes verifying information with the health department or medical healthcare provider. HOC is currently working with HHS to enter into an MOU. And that is the major update for chapter 10 outside of Inspire, which again, Lynn Hayes will go through later. Do you have any questions related to chapter 10, not related to Inspire?
Oh, y'all did clarifications to the tenant fail and failure to provide access to the unit. That's for the inspection, right? Am I correct?
Yes, but yes.
That's the
But
inspection.
Lynn Hayes will go into more detail about the inspections.
Okay.
But that didn't change.
No, I didn't say it changed. I was just looking, you
Okay.
fail to let the tenant in or failure to provide access to the unit. That's what I was reading, clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
No, I see that's the same as before.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
I don't think so.
All right, we can move to the next slide. So chapter 12, recertifications, HOC removed obsolete language as it relates to the pre-merger certificate program. So once upon a time, HUD had a voucher program as well as a certificate program. The two programs merged in 1995, and the update should have been made at that time. We're removing that language now. In addition, we updated language for persons with disabilities who may be in need of assistance with completing a recertification.
Will this also be for people with that speak different languages and everything? Would this also be included? So they can understand the application, the annual recertification.
So outside of the administrative plan, HOC recently engaged with several vendors, several translation vendors, and we have access to vendors if we need ASL, any type of different languages. We can call those contractors, and they can come in and help with translation services.
Okay. Any questions? Go, Darcel.
Okay, next slide. So here with chapter 15, we do have some significant updates here. We added language about evictions from federal housing, updates regarding CFR language related to termination for criminal activity. We added language related to use of criminal records. We also expanded additional VAWA language as it relates to criminal activity, updates regarding and receiving housing assistance and citizenship requirements. Do you have any questions or comments regarding chapter 15?
Even here.
Mm.
All right, so can we move to the next slide? So this ends my presentation, and staff recommends that the Administrative and Regulatory Committee approve the proposed revisions to the administrative plan. And I ask, does the committee wish to accept staff's recommendation and approve the proposed revisions to move forward for formal action at the July 9th, 2025 meeting of the commission?
Yeah. Darcel, this is Paul. I guess back on chapter 10, I thought we were going to talk about changes that were related to Inspire on inspections.
We will. That's a separate presentation that Lynn Hayes will give.
But I guess my question was on something that we changed in the document we just reviewed.
Okay.
Right, Darcel, I know you changed the wording in your portion too, so I guess we can go back to that. Chapter 10.
Sorry, I think it's a simple question, but in chapter 10, we talk about, we no longer list move out inspections as one of the inspections we do to be consistent with our current practice. But later, like on page 1010, we say that we will do move out inspections if the owner requests them.
Okay, we can revisit that. Lynn, do you have any feedback on that? I mean, I know we don't do those inspections, but if we need to modify.
Yeah, I would just, good afternoon, commissioners, add that move out inspections are not a type of HUD required inspections. I think they were maybe some time ago, but we're not required to conduct a move out inspection. However, we may if we elect to, and I believe we may attach a fee to that if we elect to conduct a move out inspection, but it's not a mandatory requirement. It is elective.
Yeah, so that's probably all I'm reading. The edits read that way, Lynn. Thank you.
Mm-hmm, sure.
That the owner can request a move out inspection, has to pay a fee for it. And then I think they do it if there are damages to the property they think the tenant caused, and they want to get a third party involved.
Documentation. That's correct. That's exactly right.
That's the way I understood it, but I just wanted to double check. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any more questions? If there's no more questions, Paul, you have any more questions?
No, I think I'm good. I just congratulate the staff because a lot of detailed changes going through this big document, and you can tell someone scrubbed it pretty well. So
yeah, they did.
Well done.
So with that, we need a motion because we want to take this to the full committee, our next committee meeting. So can I get a vote on this, guys? A second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So moved. This will go to the committee, our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
We got another one. We got our second one, guys. We will now move to the next item, which is the FY 2025 Section 8 Management Assessment Program, CMAP, certification. I would like to introduce again President Andrews for our overview.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Commissioners, this is an annual requirement. You will see that on an annual basis, we come before the commission with a recommendation to submit our assessment of how effective or efficient our voucher program is operating. We require board approval to submit this to HUD on an annual basis. And I am pleased to say that we have a running streak of being a high performer. There's always opportunity for improvement, and we can definitely address any questions around that. But as it pertains to the overall viability of our program and how we're positioned, we are doing very well. I'd like to turn it over to Darcel Cox to provide you with this presentation.
Thank you. Again, for the record, I am Darcel Cox, Vice President of Compliance. And I will say that each year, President Andrew steals my thunder to tell you all that we have designated ourselves as a high performer. But I'll take it a step back. CMAP is designed to measure the Public Housing Authority's performance in key areas as it relates to the Housing Choice Voucher Program. There are 14 key indicators. And the housing authorities the housing authority does a self-assessment on performance and submits the evaluation to HUD, and subsequently HUD issues its assessment of the PHA's performance. I believe we can go to the next slide. So I'll talk next slide. So currently, we are high performers. So this means we've scored at least a 90%, and HOC did score 90% this year. Next slide. So again, here are the 14 key indicators. There are 2 indicators where we did not receive the maximum point value, and then 1 indicator where we did not receive any points. Next slide. Okay, so the first indicator where we received partial points is indicator number 2, which is reasonable rent. HOC received a 97% and must score at least a 98% to receive the maximum score of 20 points. Here, I do want to provide a correction. So we have, again, 66 quality control reviews that we performed, and 2 of the samples failed. Initially, there were 3 fails, but we were able to cure 1. So that brought HOC's score up to a 98%. That's given us 15 out of 20 points. The reason for the 2 fails was processing a rent increase when a unit was in abatement and incorrect denial of the rent increase. Next slide. The second area where we received partial points was adjusted income. HOC received 86% in this area and would have had to receive a 90% or higher to receive the maximum score of 20 points. There are several factors attributed to this score, such as incorrect calculations of income and or assets. Next slide. The third indicator where HOC did not receive any points is indicator 6, which is HQS enforcement, soon to be Inspire. To receive points in this area, you are required to address all emergency 24-hour items within 24 hours. HOC did not achieve this and thus received a score of 0. Okay, so the corrective action for this is there was a system glitch which prevented HOC's ability to track the issues and resolve them. To track the issues. The system glitch has been resolved as of March 2025. Believe you can go.
You saying it's been resolved? So right now, are we still with Gibson?
Gilson,
inspection?
yes.
Okay, and he's gotten caught up with this backlog?
Len, you want to speak to that? Or Brittany?
I'm going to introduce Brittany Holloway. Brittany is the program coordinator, and she is responsible for the management oversight of our inspection process. And so I want to say, yeah, well, I'll let Brittany speak.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Nice to meet you. So as far as the backlog, we are caught up until June. I actually just met with our vendor. We meet every Tuesday, and we should have all of the backlog completed by mid-July. So we should be done by then.
Oh, okay.
And I do want to make a point of clarification in regards to the system challenge that we experienced. It was not necessarily with Gilson. They have been helping to address the backlog and have been working diligently on that. Our issue was actually with our provider, Yardi. And our IT team has been working closely with Yardi to resolve this issue, and we have finally gotten to a point where the issue has been resolved. Thank you.
Excellent. Brittany, do you want to just speak to the corrective action for this since we've introduced you? And she can move to the next slide.
Yes. So identifying that this is an issue, we've changed a few of our operations with Gilson. So a big thing is that we were doing annual inspections on Fridays, and we would have 24-hour violations identified, and we don't operate on weekends. So we stopped doing annuals on Fridays. So we only do them Monday through Thursday, which will allow us to address the 24-hour deficiencies. We also have a double notification process. So Gilson sends an email to the owners to let them know. And we also, as HOC, follow up at the end of the day to inform the landlords that there is a 24-hour deficiency, talk them through what is going to happen next to make sure that they're fully aware and increase their chances of passing the inspection the following day. We are also doing a weekly quality control with these 24-hour violations with HOC to ensure Gilson is scheduling them and rescheduling them, and everything is documented in our system accurately. And of course, we have weekly meetings with Gilson each Tuesday to go over all of these things. Anything that we find a hiccup, we work to restructure it to ensure that we are staying on track. We also, a big thing is about communication to the tenants and the landlords. So we have revised our notifications that we're sending out to tenants and landlords, just informing them of what our common fails are and how they can avoid these fails so we can minimize 24-hour violations.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Holloway. Can you just tell me about how many inspections do you have a day with Gilson?
So we have 6 inspectors in total. You want to do the math, and we do 18 inspections per inspector, so about 108 per day.
And the 6 inspectors be in different places, I'm correct? Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Brittany.
Yeah, so Brittany, thank you for that. I guess as I went through that, I was, of course, concerned with the resolution rate on 24-hour emergency repairs. And I'm wondering, I have in my head that these are things that need to be done that the tenant should be telling us about because they're health and safety issues that require immediate repairs, or B, if an inspector finds them as emergency repairs, there should be some sort of sanctions on the landlord to get them fixed ASAP. And I guess, so I have 2 questions. One is, do I have the right framing of what kinds of things we're talking about, kind of emergency health and safety stuff? And 2, what happens if the landlord doesn't fix it within 24 hours?
Yes, so our 24-hour violations are primarily smoke detectors missing inside of the bedrooms. We did send a letter out in November 2024 informing landlords that this is a requirement. We did a blast through email, so they are aware. So that did minimize some of the fails. As far as the notification to the landlord on the day of the inspection, and the tenants letting us know, the tenants were not aware of this either. So it's kind of new to them, but we also did town halls with them in May of this year, informing them that these are the things that you want to look for and alert us to. So educating our landlords and our tenants is the biggest thing, because a lot of them were not aware. They think that we're going based off of Montgomery County code, but we go off of federal because of our funding. So we had to break that down to them. So I think the biggest thing was just educating everyone of why this is happening. And it felt like a change, but we told them it's not a change, it's just in full enforcement at this point. And your second question, what happens if they don't fix it? We immediately abate payments. So what we do is we go out the first time, it's not, we identify that they're not there. We alert the tenant who's typically at the inspection, and then we alert the landlord via email and phone call. We make a visit the following day if it has not been fixed or we're not able to gain entry, which we are very, very strict with landlords, letting them know we have to gain entry to confirm the repairs are made. They then they, as in Gilson, notify us that the repairs have not been made, and my team then abates the unit, and we send out notifications to both the tenant and landlords to let them know, hey, you're not meeting HUS standards. This is life-threatening. You have 30 days to let us know, but within those 30 days, you will not receive payment.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Zola, you have any questions?
No, that was helpful.
Yeah, very helpful.
Thank you, Brittany. Next slide. So in summary, again, HOC is certifying a score of 90% as a high performer. We received full points for 11 indicators plus the bonus indicator. And we've already gone through in detail where we received partial points or no points at all. Compliance and HRD will continue to work together to increase quality control oversight and provide additional training opportunities for staff. I would like to add that HRD recently hired an internal trainer. And so we being a compliance team, will collaborate with the HRD trainer regularly to try to improve overall efficiency. Next slide.
Dr. What is,
Oh, yes.
Go back to that slide. I just wanted to know the term HRD. What is that?
Oh, Housing Resources Division.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry. Next slide. So will the Administrative and Regulatory Committee join staff's recommendation to the Commission to submit HOC's fiscal year 2025 CMAP certification to HUD as a high performer of 90%?
Yeah. Darcel, this is Paul. So what's the process from here? We submit our review of the 14 factors to HUD and our scoring. Do they come back and do a separate audit or testing of the files, or they accept our certification?
They do a testing from their end. They do not come out to test. So they basically will review the system and they will send a final scoring if they agree with us or if they have changed our recommendation. But for the last 3 years, we have certified as a high performer. I will say last year we self-certified our rating lower, and HUD came back and overturned that and gave us a rating of a high performer.
That's a good thing.
Right. So that's typically the process from here.
Great, thank you. Madam Chair, I move to submit the CMAP certification process to the full board.
Yes, that's what we want to do. We want to take this to the full board on our next meeting. So we need a vote for that. You wanna start it off, Mr. Weech?
I move to submit it to the board.
Okay. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 So moved. It will go to the full board at our next meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys. I think that's all we had on the agenda. Am I right?
There's one more item.
One more item. I didn't
Yes.
get that one. 'Cause
Yes.
I had wrote them all down. That's the only one I didn't get. What is that? You did the CMAP. Adoption, authorization to adopt a new policy for the implementation of the national standard. Is that standard? Because I can't see the
Standards.
word. The physical inspection of the real estate. What's that word again? Because y'all blocking it out on my computer. I can't see it.
Right.
The Administrative and Regulatory Committee.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Commissioners, this is a shift from our current practice, which follows housing quality standards, to a new requirement that HUD published called Inspire. We have already briefed the public in regards to these new requirements in the public sessions that we shared with you about, where we had really great participation, over 1,000 people. These new requirements are expected to be implemented no later than October 1st. And I will turn it over to, and there's not much in terms of our ability to change what has been proposed here. So there will not be the same option for PHAs. We must adhere to the new Inspire requirements. And so I'd like to turn it over to our Vice President of the Housing Resources Division, Lynn Hayes, to provide an update on this modification of our program.
Thank you, President Andrews. Good afternoon. I'm Lynn Hayes, Vice President of the Housing
Inspire.
Resources Division, and I am here to request authorization to implement Inspire. HUD published the national standards for the physical inspection of real estate, the final rule, on May 11th, 2023. They subsequently published a PIH, or Public and Indian Housing Notice, on September 29th of 2023, which implements the requirements for the Housing Choice Voucher Program and Project-Based Voucher Program. Then on July 5th, 2024, HUD provided notice that housing authorities could extend the implementation of Inspire until no later than October 1st, 2025. The prior date, the implementation date, was supposed to be the prior year, October 1st of 2024. If we want to implement the requirements earlier, that is an option, and we would simply need to notify HUD if we elect to do so. We, as Chelsea, President Andrews, and Darcel Cox both mentioned, we have notified all of our landlords of the forthcoming changes last year in November of 2024. We sent notice to residents in March of this year. And additionally, we hosted 2 town hall meetings where we presented this information on April 22nd and April 29th of this year. So we are notifying all of our landlords and tenants of the forthcoming changes. HUD will update this information every 3 years to make sure that the requirements are current with the industry practice. And HUD has changed the requirements to streamline the process and make them uniform and objective across all HUD housing programs. Next slide. So Inspire focuses on the health, safety, and functionality of property features, ensuring that our residents are living in habitable homes. And I'll speak more to that later in the presentation. The proposed language for the Inspire policy can be found in Chapter 10 of our administrative plan. As Darcel just presented Chapter 10 to you, there are no changes in policy. So the only real change in Chapter 10 is that we are changing the word or the acronym HQS, which stands for Housing Quality Standards, to Inspire. We made this chapter available to the general public, so that the markup of the administrative plan was made available to the public on March 21st, 2025. And we use a third-party contractor to conduct our inspections. That's Gilson Housing Partners, and they are ready to implement Inspire now. They are certified in the Inspire requirements and actually work with HUD to determine what the required protocol should be. Next slide. So Inspire redefines housing quality standards, which again are the standards or criteria that we currently use to inspect the properties or the units. Inspire updates the requirements. So HQS have not been updated or changed. They're over 20 years old. Again, the major focus on Inspire is to prioritize the health and safety of our residents, and it better aligns the standards across all of HUD housing programs. Next slide. So some things that are, again, many things are remaining the same as we migrate to Inspire. So the types of inspections will not change. We will continue to conduct initial inspections, periodic or annual inspections, special inspections, or turnover inspections for project-based vouchers. The timing of the inspections will not change. At HOC, we conduct the inspections annually. Some housing authorities conduct inspections biannually or triannually. The people who conduct the inspections will not change. We will continue to use the third-party contractor. There is an allowance for certain approved variations for local conditions. If we wanted to adopt maybe a local code, we could do that with HUD approval. Alternative inspection methods are still an option. So in our administrative plan, we have remote video inspections. And so we implemented the remote inspections during the pandemic, and that language does remain in our administrative plan. The enforcement of inspection for special housing has not changed. So special housing types would include housing such as shared housing, congregate care, single room SRO, single room occupancy, or group homes. So housing of that nature. And we will continue to enforce the provisions of the Housing Assistance Payment Contract, which is the legal binding agreement between HOC and the local landlord. And we will continue to enforce the family obligations. Next slide. So some of the changes that will come forth with the implementation of Inspire, or there are 3 inspectable areas. And so I will again get into that in the next couple of slides. But so the unit itself will be one of the areas that the inspector must inspect, the inside and the outside. And so I do want to highlight that Inspire is changing the standards only. So the policy or procedures are not changing. Simply the standards are changing. So again, 3 inspectable areas, the unit, the inside, and the outside. There are new ratings for deficiency. So life-threatening being the most severe or highest, followed by severe, moderate, and low. So when the inspector inspects the property, they will give it an overall deficiency rating as they are looking at the various criteria. HOTMA has created, there is now a list or a mandatory listing of what is considered a life-threatening deficiency. HOTMA enhances the standards for many critical health areas. So now mold is an area that the inspectors will inspect. That was not a previous requirement under HQS, infestation and fire safety. Inspire implements congressional changes. So smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors are now a requirement, and it requires less subjectivity for the inspectors and more objectivity as the inspectors are on sites inspecting properties. Next slide. So again, Inspire will place emphasis on health and safety in areas that impact their residents. There's less emphasis on the condition and appearance of the defects, and removing, again, subjective deficiency. So there is a very conclusive checklist that the inspectors will use that simplifies the process, where it lists each area to be inspected and then the appropriate ratings. Next slide. So when the inspector notes that there's a deficiency, there are certain timelines or requirements. So we've talked somewhat about the 24-hour violations. Any life-threatening deficiency would require correction within 24 hours. If the deficiency is considered to be severe or moderate, those deficiencies must be corrected within 30 days. And any low deficiency could pass with comments. So it might be something that is low that would pass with comments. Next slide. So again, a life-threatening deficiency is a deficiency that poses a high risk of death or severe illness if not treated. An example of a life-threatening deficiency would be a gas leak, if a missing smoke detector or carbon monoxide detector is not there, or if maybe the front door is missing. A severe deficiency is a deficiency that poses a high risk of permanent disability or serious injury to the resident if untreated. An example of a severe deficiency would be no hot water, a blocked sewage system, or maybe an extensive infestation problem in a unit. A moderate deficiency is a deficiency that would pose a risk of an adverse medical treatment requiring a healthcare visit or temporary harm. Moderate deficiencies, again, must be corrected within 30 days. An example of a moderate deficiency would be a water leak or a foundation crack or a permanent light fixture is inoperable. And then the lowest deficiency rating would be low. And again, deficiencies of this nature could pass with comment. An example of a low deficiency would be maybe water outside of a sink basin. Next slide. So this slide illustrates the 3 inspectable areas. So the unit itself is the interior of the home. And so the inspector will pay close attention when looking at the interior components. Examples would be the living space itself, a bathroom, a balcony. They would look at walls and stairs, all of the things inside of the unit itself. Inside, the second inspectable area refers to the common areas within a building. And so the inspector will now be required to look at kind of separate areas like laundry rooms, workout rooms, utility rooms, basement, closets, in the facility itself. And then the outside of the building is referring to the exterior components or any building systems outside. And so this would include sidewalks, parking lots, playground, retaining walls, things of that nature. Next slide. So this slide is illustrating when the inspector conducts the inspection, how he would rate or evaluate the 3 inspectable areas. So the unit itself would be categorized under unit. An entryway or lobby would be under the inside category, and then the grounds would be considered the outside of the inspection. Next slide. So Inspire focuses on 8 different health and safety areas. So the first is fire safety. And so Brittany spoke earlier about smoke detectors. The HOC requirement was to have a smoke detector on every level of the unit. And so the new requirement, as again, she mentioned on the federal level, is to not only have the smoke detector on every level, but also in every sleeping room. Water safety is also a area of focus. So if there's any evidence of water infiltration, right, which could be a stain on the wall or on the ceiling, that's an automatic fail, which will require a 30-day correction. Mold and moisture is a new area as well. Under HQS, the inspectors really were not trained to identify mold, but now under Inspire, if there are 4 inches of a mold-like substance, this would equate to an automatic fail with a 30-day requirement to repair. If there's 1 square foot or more of a mold-like substance, that would result in a 24-hour violation. Carbon monoxide is a focus, also new, which households are required to have a carbon monoxide detector on every level of the home. That was not our prior practice under HQS. Infestation is a core area of concern. If there's any evidence of infestation in a home, if there's 1 roach, bed bug, or mouse evidence seen in 2 rooms, that's considered a severe condition, which would require remediation within 24 hours. So that is a high correction. Lead-based paint, we've talked about, but this is particularly a concern for units that were built before 1978, where there are children under the age of 6 years old. So our inspectors will be looking for any evidence of lead-based paint deterioration and require immediate remediation. The structural soundness of the building itself is a core area. So under Inspire, the inspectors will look for things like a missing guardrail. They will look at the chimney, the roof, to determine if those items require correction. And then the habitability of the home itself is an area, a core area that Inspire will focus on. The inspectors will ensure that there's 1 bedroom for every 2 persons under Inspire. They'll look to see that there's hot and cold water and adequate, safe drinking water. There's a bathroom in proper working condition, and things like a light fixture in the bathroom or kitchen. So just making sure that the unit itself is habitable for our residents. Next slide. So this slide is illustrating the top 10 most reoccurring threatening defects and most severe defects. This information is based on the Inspire demonstration. And again, though Inspire is required the implementation date October 1st, some housing authorities have elected to implement Inspire in advance of that, based on HUD's findings. So these are the top kind of fail items. And again, we've taken the necessary steps. We've shared this information with our landlords and again, notified them of the new requirements that are forthcoming effective October 1st. Next slide. So we are requesting your support to recommend to the commission that the president or her designee is authorized to implement the Inspire changes effective October 1st, 2025. We will be presenting this item at our commission 9th of this year, and there is no budget or fiscal impact for this policy recommendation. And at this time, I will take any questions.
You got any questions, guys?
Lynn, I have a couple. As I read through the changes, I was a little concerned about the things that they seem to be de-emphasizing or putting less emphasis on in the new standards. And the one that leapt out at me was site and neighborhood standards. I don't know, trash and the fencing's not safe for kids, or those kinds of things. Are those just not part of the inspections, or would they show up as things that the inspectors report back to us?
I think, well, fencing definitely would. That would be considered as the outside, so the outside inspectable areas. And I believe litter is as well.
Okay.
And so I think it is, and Brittany is really the subject matter expert, and she is here to help me out. But yes, there definitely would continue to be the emphasis on the outside.
And the other thing that leapt out at me was
Mhm.
appearance factors. And I was
Mhm.
imagining things like peeling paint or holes in the carpet, things that just make these homes a decent place to live for our residents, for our voucher holders. And I'm
So
just, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I would say HQS was are the very basic minimal standards. And the inspired to me from from the trainings that and what I've seen on, various HUD website and industry websites is they are making them kind of more they're improving them, enhancing them. HQS was the bare minimum. And so this really is, these are focusing on, as they say, the health and safety for our residents. So, a hole in the wall would not pass, a hole in a carpet would be a trip hazard. So I think it is an improvement. I really think it's an enhancement. But again, Brittany is the subject matter expert. I don't know, Brittany, if you want to
I'd
add.
like to actually chime in here in terms of historically where some housing authorities have had challenges with HQS have to do with if you have a property that has trees that cause sidewalks to have cracks in them, you would get a finding in regards to that. There's like these REAC and HQS in many instances would look at exterior components that may or may not have health and safety hazards, but would ultimately result in a property constantly failing or having challenges. Whereas I believe Inspire is more tied to the health and safety for the individual and not as much on the overall appearance of the property. Although I will say for our own selves, of course, we have our own standards, and our maintenance team is very astute to walking the properties, making sure they meet our qualifications as reflected in our contracts with our third-party property managers. And so we're able to meet our own standard in regards to maintenance, even above and beyond. But one of the challenges that housing authorities have experienced, and I'm leaning more on REACT than HQS in this instance, but have definitely been exterior historic challenges at a property that would never be able to meet the criteria because of those. So that might be one of the reasons why they shifted to this focus on the individual.
Well, yeah, so I'm glad I was coming away with the impression that Inspire was certainly upping the game on health and safety stuff, but lessening the focus on the things I just mentioned. So it's nice to hear that those aren't going away. And then that kind of let Chelsea, you anticipated my other question related to this is I was going to ask the team sort of where is Inspire falls short in terms of our standards and and what variances will we adopt or have we adopted that exceed what Inspire would have us do. And we don't have to do that on this call. But
And that would,
but I'm pleased to
again,
hear our contracts have some of those things.
right. And that's more on the multifamily side, where Inspire and REACT and making the comparisons. And then there's also the county code requirements. So there are multiple areas of oversight in regards to the multifamily, and we can definitely circle back with our maintenance and our property management team to talk about that. Whereas here before you, we're really speaking to properties that are operated by private landlords where our requirements and our expectations are that our residents and our customers will reside in safe and habitable environments, and not as focused on if the sidewalk outside around the corner has some treat. And I will say this one example is a real example. That's why I've given it a couple of times. But it definitely can result in ongoing challenges for some of the housing authorities.
Yeah. I mean, of course, my interest is just sort of driving the program, the housing choice voucher program, to get people into the nicest, most decent places they can afford, right?
Right.
So.
Yes. Thank you.
And then, I just have one question. You did say that this is going to kick off for sure October the 1st,
Yes,
2025,
yes,
and you have already went to our different residents and y'all had an open meeting about this twice, right? 2 times hall meeting?
on April 22nd and April 29th, yes.
Right, I got that down. Okay.
And just, I'm sorry, I didn't add, we presented this information also to the resident advisory board yesterday.
Oh, yesterday?
Yesterday, and they didn't have any questions, and they were pleased that they had some familiarity because we had presented the information at the town hall meetings.
Azola, did you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, then this action, we want to take this to the full board July the 9th?
Yes.
Darcy?
Yeah.
Okay, I need a motion.
I so moved.
Second. It has been properly moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Did I
So
do this right? Okay. This agenda is subject to change. No, okay. It looks like we're done.
I move to adjourn.
Can I get a second?
Second.
So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Well done, team.
Let me
Thank
look at
you.
the time. Our
Okay.
meeting is closing at 5:16 p.m.
Yes.
Thank you,
very
guys.
much. Have a
Thank
great
you.
evening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank
You
you.
too.